Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. If you're paying attention to any of my other videos, I hope to have some Airstream videos coming up in the near future. Should be some interesting things there. I've received a solar panel and I'm expecting another one, so I've got some cool unboxings for the whole Airstream. It's cold here, below zero, of course, up in Canada. So I won't be doing much outside, but I do have some updates there. By the way, if you would like to support the channel, definitely go over to micahgallant.com, and there's a support link that you can check out, and if you feel like you would like to support the channel, you can do that way. So I want to take a look at a couple of articles this morning, which kind of round up and sum up the situation with the countries, Israel. Take a look at Russia. Russia's an interesting country, and of course a big player in the last days, as we all understand. The common understanding is that Russia will be kind of the big player in Ezekiel 38-39. So they're playing a part right now, and interesting stuff going on. First is a follow-up to the altar that was created in Israel by the Sanhedrin, made out of poured concrete, because they cannot have any stones cut with metal, because metal is, according to them, used for death, used for killing. So they can't have any stones cut with metal, which means they had to either take existing stones that weren't cut and build them up, or they've apparently decided to build it with poured concrete. So they've done that, but they haven't yet done a sacrifice, and the reason is their law, their custom, is that they can't sacrifice unless they have a third temple to sacrifice in. And of course, they don't have that, but they're getting Israel ready. They're getting all the implements ready, and I'm not sure what is left on the list, to be absolutely honest. I think they're looking to make a crown. They already have a gold crown, but they're looking to make, I think, another one. I'll have to find that article. But there's very few things left. I believe they do have a temporary temple that they could set up at any time if they get the go-ahead. And but they're moving towards it. And the general hope of the priests is to move Israel in a direction to looking forward to and wanting the third temple. And I believe that's going to be a cornerstone of the peace process that ends up being implemented by the Antichrist. And so all the prophetic lines are converging. I don't think the Temple Institute needs really anything else. The Sanhedrin, I don't think they need really anything else. They have they have the golden menorah, they have the wash basins, they have the table of showbread. I mean, they have all the items, as far as I know. The priestly garb, the Kohanim, they have trained priests from the priestly class, the Kohanim, ready to go with temple sacrifices. And this is kind of one of the last things. Now, they do need a red heifer, and that red heifer has to be a certain number of years old, 2 years old or whatever it is, and it has to be a perfect red heifer. Now, I think the red heifer is about a year old at this time. If I recall the article I looked at, I think the last mention of a red heifer was about a year ago. Maybe it was earlier this year. And it has to be perfect, and it has to be about 2 years old, I think. I'll have to go and check that up for the next video before they can offer that as a sacrifice. But isn't that interesting? If it's about 1 year old now, and it needs to be about 2 years old or 2 years old, then the temple sacrifices will and can be ready for 2021. I believe that's when the 7-year tribulation starts, and I think I think that's coming soon. But it does line up with the 2021 timeline. I believe so far it seems like events are converging. It almost looks like events are going to converge faster than I expect. But these things always seem to work out exactly on time, even though they look like they're going to either go really slowly or going to blow up really quick. They end up coming out right on time. And this article is from Haaretz.com. Temple Mount activists celebrate new altar, but the plea to practice animal sacrifice is rejected. It's rejected at this current time. So there's a particular energetic group of people, activists, who are really pushing for this, but they gotta get Israel on board. They gotta get the Jewish people on board, looking for the Messiah, etc. Activists who want ancient temple rebuilt thus had to slaughter the sheep elsewhere, so they're slaughtering somewhere else, which isn't in keeping with the law, as far as I'm aware. And they say we will still have to do what we still have to do is awaken the people, and that's kind of a biblical term, because the sinews are put on the bone, and the meat is on the bones of the Jewish people, just as I think it's in, what is it, in Jeremiah, speaks to the dry bones coming together, and to awaken the people. I think that is a kind of a reference to God breathing life into the people, to where they recognize Him again. And so, interesting terminology that the activists use. They still have to awaken the people. Activists who hope to see this temple rebuilt on Jerusalem's Temple Mount unveiled a new altar Monday. They say is intended to be placed on the mount and used to offer sacrifices. So that's the article there, which is interesting. Now, going on here, here's a Russian article. I have a few different Russian articles. Coincidentally, Russian mapping service accidentally, quote-unquote, revealed secret Turkish and Israeli air bases. Huh. Why is that? Did a Russian mapping service accidentally reveal Israeli bases? Probably not here. The secret military sites on Yandex maps range from airfields and munitions storage bunkers to what Korda characterized as small, nondescript buildings within city blocks. Blurring out sites, specific sites, is unusual, said Korda, adding that it was certainly done at the request of both Israel and Turkey. So you can see the blurred out sites there on the images. Again, I don't know if it's a mistake that they did not blur them out originally. Certainly interesting. So, does the government of Russia have a hand in that? I don't know. Here is, well, this is a China article. This is kind of in between the Russian articles. So we have the situation with Meng, the CFO of Huawei, who is accused of, the company Huawei was accused of illegally selling products and services, I guess, to Iran, even though there were sanctions. So the U.S. has posted an extradition request. So Canada arrested this Meng individual, the CFO of Huawei, when she was en route through Vancouver Airport. And so she's currently in house arrest, and the U.S. hasn't completed the extradition request. And so what is China doing? Well, it's a tit-for-tat situation. China has now disappeared 2 Canadian citizens, arrested, apparently, 2 Canadian citizens, basically, to see if Canada will back down from the house arrest. It's going to be interesting to see how Canada plays this out. How long will Canadian citizens put up with China holding on to 2 Canadians who are potentially under serious interrogation and could even be torture and in jail. It's going to be very interesting to see who wins in this, because the U.S. is basically playing Meng as a pawn in the tariff wars and the trade wars. And so how this plays out, I don't know, but I think this really pushes the economic collapse even closer. We have signs all over the place of economic collapse. I believe these are the birth pains. We're going to see probably another height in markets, and then we're going to see a massive economic collapse. I kind of think that's what's coming, but this is a situation with Canada. Canada's the middleman, kind of in between here, and really caught in the middle, and China's punishing Canada because Canada has now put this person under house arrest, and China's really embarrassed by it. So that's kind of the situation with the citizens disappearing. Now there's a situation in Venezuela. So here's the news from a couple days ago. I actually didn't report on this. This is from BBC. U.S.-Russian spat over bombers landing in Venezuela. Russian-U.S. officials have been involved in a spat over landing in Venezuela of 2 Russian bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons. And of course, that would be close to the United States in terms of delivering nuclear weapons and further cooperating with Venezuela. So 2 Tu-160 bombers, and these are also bombers that have flown, as far as I know, on the outskirts of the UK in a bothersome manner to the UK, the UK military, the European military, NATO in general, and these are even ones that fly around Alaska and really, threaten United States and Canadian sovereignty. And so these 2 flew into Venezuela. Well, A couple days later, 3 days later, we have news that these bombers are now leaving Venezuela. Russia tells U.S. their bombers to leave Venezuela on Friday. Russia told the United States 2 of its strategic bombers capable of carrying nuclear warheads will leave Venezuela Friday, the White House said on Wednesday, ending a deployment that angered Washington. The article says, "We have spoken to representatives of Russia and have informed them that their military aircraft which landed in Venezuela will be leaving on Friday and going back to Russia," White House Secretary Sarah Sanders said in an email to Reuters. It's interesting. Why would Russia back down? Is it a thing where Russia had planned already to fly these back anyways? Or did U.S. actually come out with a threat and Russia back down on it? I think there's a lot more to this story, and I don't know what the story is. I haven't really seen a lot about it. We'll likely hear what's going on in the coming days. It's unlike Russia to back down, especially if these are just planes and there's not actually any military threat. Why would Russia back down? So it certainly looks like either Russia had already planned to leave, send them back Friday, or they're going to do some threatening overflight on the way back to Russia. I don't know. But it's a curious situation. Why would Russia just back down? Apparently, this looks like Russia is bowing to the U.S., which, Russia's not going to put up with. Putin never wants to look like he is weak. And so it's a curious situation. I think there's a larger story here that we need to find out. So something to pay attention to. And there's if you Google this one, Russia, Venezuela, all the sorts of articles and even a video of the arrival of these planes in Venezuela. So again, interesting stuff. Don't know what's going on there, but I think there's more to the story that we don't know. So that's something I'll be following. In terms of a general market update, well, let's take a look at the markets here. I think they're generally all over the place. I think yesterday they were up, although there were still warning signs. Follow Gregory Mannarino. He does a great job at actually covering the situation on the markets, the value of the U.S. dollar, the situation of gold and silver. So the Dow futures are down 45. Let's see where they ended up the other day. They were up only 157. So I think they're pretty much flat for the whole year at this point. U.S. stock futures slip as Wall Street digests volatility and trade war developments. And part of that trade war development is that a second Canadian is missing. So if Canada backs down and moves Meng back to China, that would ease off the pressure for Canada. But that would be a change in the trade wars, good or bad. I'm not sure. Trump faces pushback after he says he may intervene in the arrest of the Huawei executive. And by intervening, some are suggesting that he could just say, you know what, we're not going to extradite her, so let her go and let her go back to China. And that would be Trump's easy way of getting rid of that. And of course, same with Russia. China's not just going to back down. They're just not just going to completely capitulate to the U.S., to the threats, to the game being played here. So I expect some hardball to be played, and we're going to see who's going to blink effectively, and it could be Canada that blinks, and Canada might just decide, this is not worth it. And indeed, the commentators suggested that the judge could say that this is becoming a political football, and Meng is effectively a political football in trade wars. So we're going to basically let her go because it's not fair to her. It's not a full, clear, impartial legal situation. In fact, it's a political football at this point in time. So it's an interesting situation going on there, and who knows what the backstory is on this bomber flight as well. So I'm going to be tracking these ones, but I think these are all building to a point where the world is ready for war. What are these? These are wars, rumors of wars, economically and militarily. And I think the Bible describes a time such as now, and that's what we're seeing. I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for some of those Airstream videos. Hope to be able to have some time this Saturday to make a couple of those. And I think some fun updates, some unboxings, etc. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.